Welcome to the Egg Whisperer Show. I'm Dr. Amy, fertility doctor and your egg whisperer. This week's episode is called When IVF Fails, the what now moment in finding hope through donor eggs. If you've ever wondered what comes after a failed IVF cycle or how someone finds the strength to explore donor eggs, this conversation is for you. IVF can be an incredible path to parenthood, but it's also a journey that can come with unexpected turns. And sometimes the hardest moment isn't the treatment itself, it's the moment afterward when you're sitting there asking, what now? Today we're talking about that exact moment. My guest is Victoria Nino. She's joined me before to talk about her book, Our Hearts Match. I'll link to it in the show notes for you. Victoria has lived through multiple failed IVF cycles and eventually became a mom of 2 through donor conception. In this episode, we're going deeper into the emotional side of that journey. We'll talk about the grief that can follow failed IVF, the pressure many patients feel when considering donor eggs, and how education and support can help people move forward feeling informed and empowered. We'll also talk about options people may not realize even exist, including frozen donor eggs and having an open relationship with a donor. Victoria, welcome back again. I'm really glad you're here. Thank you for joining me. I love having you on. I always just learn so much from you, and I know that everyone who's listening is going to do that also today.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
So for our listeners who may not have heard your first episode with me or, have been on your Instagram page, can you start by sharing a little bit about your fertility journey and what led you into IVF treatment?
I'll try to give the cliff notes because it was a long one. But essentially, I always knew, I always had this feeling, even as early in my 20s before I was married, that there was something wrong. I knew that I had really painful periods. I knew they lasted a long time. I knew that I lost a lot of blood. And so I had constantly been to gynecologist after gynecologist saying, what's wrong with me? And they would just say, you just have painful periods. You just have long periods. This is just what's wrong. Eventually, fast forward after I got married at 29 and we started trying to have a baby right away. Nothing was happening. Years went by, went to a fertility specialist, talked about my symptoms. And one of the first things she said was, you might have endometriosis. We did intervention. I did have it. Stage 3, did the surgery to remove it, tried IVF multiple times, tried IUI multiple times, and could only ever get 1 or 2 eggs to grow. I finally did a retrieval with two follicles, 2 eggs, and neither of them fertilized. And so that was the moment of thinking there might be another way we have to go. And eventually was faced with the option of egg donation. And my doctor brought it up to me and my husband at the time, and I was not open to it. He definitely wasn't open to it. We both had our own individual thoughts and fears around this. We did eventually get on board with the idea. And unfortunately, our first donor did not work out. So that was a big grieving period in our life where we had to take a break from all of it because it just became too heavy. But the second round, a new donor, actually a new doctor, I got pregnant with my daughter, who's now 7.5, almost 8 years old.
Yeah.
The love of my life, who's literally she is me, I am her. That's what we say to each other all the time. And then had 2 more embryos from that same donor that I thought just were 2 more babies, of course, because I thought, well, I fixed the egg problem. We should be good. Right. And those unfortunately did not end in a pregnancy. I did have a spontaneous pregnancy in the midst of all this. I miscarried and then thought that was it. We had conversations about being a 1-child family and we're coming to terms with that. And my daughter at the time, who was 3, which is crazy to me that she was 3, and the things that she said to me, she was like, you gotta do it again. She's like, you gotta get new eggs, and I was like, okay. I remember exactly what I said to her. I can't just go to Trader Joe's.
Right.
And she was like, okay, well, what do you have to do? And I said, it's really hard. I have to find a new egg donor and I have to go through a lot of procedures again and medicine and money. And she was like, you can do hard things, Mama. That's what you always tell me. And so I was like, yeah, she's right. And she kept pushing. She was like, you got to get me a baby brother. And she was very specific. It had to be a brother, which I was like, I have no control over that. nor do I want control over that. I remember being connected with Donor Nexus at the time, which was an agency that also had frozen eggs.
Mm-hmm.
And the frozen eggs, they had open relationships with these
Mm-hmm.
women, which I had never heard of before.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that was something that I really wanted to do. If I had to do it over again, that was the one change I would make, is to have a relationship, or at least know who the person is. And I want them to know me. And so it ended up working out. We got 6 frozen eggs from this woman, Chloe, who now I email with, who I know. She knows me. She knows my
Yeah.
kid, or knows of them. She's never met them. And I now have my 3-year-old son, the baby brother that she wanted. I chose the frozen route because it was quicker. The eggs were there, they were available. I still got to have the relationship that I wanted,
Right.
and it was way more affordable. And I was 42 at the time. And so I was like, I can't go down that journey again with a fresh donor and all the waiting and the what ifs. Like, I got to move quick. And I knew I just needed one baby. So, like, 6 eggs, I thought that those were good odds. Well,
Right.
we actually ended up with 2 strong embryos. So now we have two children via 2 different women on two very different paths, fresh and frozen. One that was anonymous, one that's open, and 2 siblings that, although they're half genetically related, they don't have half of each other. Like, they fight like siblings, they love like siblings.
Yeah.
They are
And then
siblings.
in your first journey, did you ever think that you wanted a relationship with the egg donor and know who she was?
I didn't.
Yeah.
I was like, get this person away from me. I don't want to know. I don't want to see. I don't, I was deep in that grief. I was in
Yeah.
denial. I didn't want her to invade on our life.
I hear all those same things from my patients. And then once they have a baby, they start asking the questions.
Right.
And they start thinking about their donor conceived child who will become a person who will ask these questions. So I think it's so wonderful that the fertility industry is moving in this direction. Donor Nexus has always been at the forefront and leader of these things. And even before open donation was a thing, which it is more of a thing now, they've always been very open when I've had matches with them to introduce my families to the egg donor. And everyone has said yes.
I
So
knew that's the thing. It's like, can we just ask the donors? Because
exactly.
I think a lot of them are open to it, where they're just
Yeah.
not, they're just being told it's just, this is the way it works. It's anonymous.
Right.
Not even, you can't even use the word anonymous anymore. It's
Right.
just what is it?
Open.
Non-identified, right?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Let's talk about the emotional reality of going through failed IVF cycles. What you described when talking about your journey is not just one cycle, it's years of literally suffering. And many people, when they start their journey, they think of IVF as a straight line towards success, but obviously that's not always the reality. What was it like emotionally for you when those IVF cycles didn't work? And I'd love to hear, like, how did you get through that all?
I don't know. So a lot of it's a blur. I do think the way it feels, like, now that I am a mom and I have had a miscarriage, it feels like you lost a baby every time. Because every time you have in your mind a vision of this, not just a baby, a toddler, a teenager, an adult one day, their name, what they're going to look like, their room in your house, like, all of that starts to play out in your head the moment that embryo, I would even argue before it's even placed inside of you, the moment you learn it's there, right? It's like you're identifying these embryos as parts of your family. And so when that doesn't work, that embryo, even though it's not a human yet, that vision of that person is real, and that person just died. So when people reach out and they're like, hey, how do we support someone who had an unsuccessful IVF transfer? I'm like, how would you support someone who lost their baby? I mean, it's no different. You show up for them, you bring them food, you send them cards and flowers and offer to help, like, it's grief. And I think that's what's so hard for those that experience this, is when people don't understand it that way and they say things that, intentionally they mean well, but end up hurting us because they don't see our grief the way that we do. It feels almost invisible.
Absolutely. And then once, you're talking about the grief, but then it sounds like you're also a planner. And you went right to decision making. You had endometriosis surgery, and then, you started thinking about donor eggs. How did that look for you? That what now moment when, you're dealing with grief and then you have to make a decision. How did you do that?
People say about me that I'm very quick to move on things. I'd argue I'm not quick. I did a lot of research. I had a doctor at the time who was very well versed on epigenetics, and I talk about this a lot and how that was initially what helps me get over the hump. But I think when you've had so many IVFs not work, you're just exhausted
Mm-hmm.
and you're beat up. And there's just a part of you that feels like you want to put your hands in the air and say, okay, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. What else? Sometimes that like burnout is what helps the pivot. And sometimes it just takes a door like creaking open with a little bit of light of here's another option. Have you like here's something that could work. Take a look, like take a
Right.
peek. And then when you take a peek, you might think, oh God, no. And you close it, you slam the door. And it's this back and forth of I can't do that, or maybe I could. Well, that sounds terrible. Well, actually, that could work though. What if that is good? And so there's this teetering, and this is, I lead support groups all the time of people that are in that teeter mode of one day it feels like, oh, I can do this. And another day is I'm just so deep in my grief, I want to fall to the floor in a puddle of tears. But I think for me, when I initially said yes, I was probably not emotionally ready. And I talked about that donor that failed. I think that was kind of the universe's way of saying, you're not ready yet. Like
Right.
you said yes, but you were faking it. I mean, that was like brutal to have to go through that after I
Yeah.
finally said yes for it to not work. I was like, are you kidding me?
Right.
But in hindsight, it all makes sense. And I will say the next time around, I did more of the work. I did the therapy. I did the soul searching. I talked to other people, and I was like, okay, now I've no one will ever say you can fully grieve your genetics before getting pregnant. Like that's just not realistic. I was probably halfway there, which I think is reasonable. And getting halfway there was what I needed to get to open that door to then become pregnant. And then literally the moment my daughter's eyes met my eyes, I was there. I was
Right.
fully there,
Right. And I tell patients, and I'm sure you've had this experience leading support groups and talking to women on the other side, is that grief over not having your own genetics could be long lasting.
Correct.
And it doesn't necessarily have to go away. You're still
Yeah.
going to feel so much love for your baby, even though your baby is from a donor egg. And you shouldn't, you should just know that it's normal to still have that grief.
Yeah. It's funny. My daughter and I talk about that stuff, sometimes because my ex-husband is Colombian. And even
Yeah.
though the egg donor was blonde hair, blue eyes like me, she came out looking full Colombian. And
Yeah.
so we have different races. And so that comes up a lot for her. And she'll say, Mama, do you sometimes wish we were the same color? And, it's a hard question to answer. And I said, well, what do you think? And sometimes I wish we were the same color. And I tell people, your kids might have some grief too, but who better to help them through that than you?
Right.
Their
Right.
mom who literally went through that exact process, right?
Right.
And can say, I get it, honey. Like, I understand why you feel that. And of course, we can feel the grief, but we can also then say, but it's so cool that like you're brown and I'm white, like that we're both so uniquely us, right? So we can have the joy live right alongside the grief, and that's okay
Right.
too.
Right. Yeah.
But the grief starts to die down and the joy rises, and it becomes a little flicker sometimes. And
Yeah.
there's little triggers that'll bring it up for you and for me.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that like I would change anything or that
Right.
I mean, these kids are my kids. Like they like, I always talk about how we say, I am you, you are me. Like there is no like percentage of how much of me is in them. Like they are all of me.
Right.
Like all of
Totally. Yeah. That's beautiful. And then, you mentioned how you're known for being quick to make decisions. How did you give yourself space to pause and learn and process before deciding what to do next? And why do you think pausing is important to a person's journey? And why is it so difficult sometimes to even do that?
Well, it's important because you don't want to go into donor eggs feeling like you're just beat up. You don't want to have this defeat on you coming into this process. Sometimes you need a little space to just create some peace in your life, to try to balance your mental health and try to find more confidence or empowerment, like something around this that feels like you do have a choice in this, right? This isn't just you're backed against the wall and you have to do this. That's not at all the case. You shouldn't do it if that's where you feel. That's why I share my stories to try to help people like bridge that gap of, yeah, I do feel like enough is enough. I can't take it anymore, but open the door a little more, take a further peek, like learn more about it, talk to people, join the groups, read the books, and start to just walk in the room a bit. You can come back out, but at least do that process before you just jump because you feel forced, because that's not going to be best for your child either, right?
Yeah.
They need a mom who has done that work.
Right.
And again, I'll say this a million times, you don't have to be 100% there. That's not going to happen. Don't put that pressure on yourself, but do some of the work because you'll appreciate it later. Your kids will appreciate it too. I did take a break, even though I make decisions quickly. Like, we took an entire year off from fertility treatments and went to Thailand, and I had a very spiritual experience that led me back to try again with a new donor. But I do think that time off helped me. And I know a lot of people don't have a year. Like, I still don't know how I did that, even if it's just a month. Just take a little bit of time to just say, I'm quitting it all and I'm going to just focus on me and like the mental, emotional side of
Right.
all of this.
What I tell my patients is you get to a point where donor egg sounds exciting and you feel hopeful again
Yeah.
because now there's something it has a really high likelihood of working. And it's not a light switch. I can't just turn it on right now. But if you look at donor eggs as something that's bad and means failure for you, you're not ready.
Correct.
And my patients share with me, Amy, you're so right. Like, all of a sudden something just turned on.
Yeah.
It wasn't immediate, like when you brought up donor eggs.
Yeah.
And then I became excited and I felt hopeful again.
Yeah. And it's such
So,
a beautiful pivot. Like, when I see
well,
that and people that go through my groups, I get emotional because I'm like, I remember that pivot for me, and it takes so much to get there. But once you're there, and it doesn't mean you don't teeter still,
right,
but it's really just the way you view this changes everything. Your
right.
perspective about it can truly just change everything for you. When you meet others that have done this and you learn more about things like epigenetics, for example, that's one thing. Bonding and attachment, how it has nothing to do with genetics. I mean, these are all things we talk about in our groups. I bring in medical professionals. Like, we just assume a lot of things about the mother-child relationship that actually aren't true. And so once you get like the science behind it, you can sort of say, oh, actually, these are facts. Like, this could actually be a really meaningful, beautiful mother-child relationship.
I'm not very good at analogies, but one of the ones I use is, for example, let's say you need an organ transplant. Your liver stops working. You need a new liver to live. I say, frame it like that. Like, your ovaries aren't working. And for you, in order to live, you need an egg transplant, so to speak. And we need to get a donor. And for you to live the happiest life that you want for yourself, we have to go to an egg. And that's okay. That's how you frame it.
And I agree with that because I remember saying that my egg donor saved my life. Like, I'll get emotional.
Yeah.
Because I really thought I was dying. Like,
Yeah.
when you want it so bad, that's what it feels like. And it's happening for everyone else and not for you. And then to get a part that you need to fulfill that part of you, it can feel like it's saving your life, truly.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
So obviously we're talking about really complicated emotions and you've been so honest, and I'd love to have you share with us some of the fears or misconceptions you had before you started exploring that option.
Yeah. I think my biggest fear was what other people would think, like, are they going to look at us differently? Are they going to not see me as the real mom? Or what is my kid going to think? Is my kid not going to see me as the real mom? Because to me, like, I had done the work. Like, there was no question I was going to love my baby. Like, a lot of people struggle with, like, will I bond? I think I did that in the very beginning. But once I was pregnant, there was no question. Like, I'm attached. I'll do anything for this baby. This is my baby. But I was just more worried about society and friends and family and my parents and my close family. And a lot of that was just stories that I was making up in my head. And, there are people, I will say, that in my life that did say some hurtful things unknowingly, and because they didn't have the education either. And a lot of people don't. I think back to when I first was introduced to donor eggs, I ran home and Googled, who will be the real mom? That was what I typed in Google. And now I'm just like, there's nothing more real than me. Like, I am the one who does all the things. Like, I am mom. And I try, and that, again, I'm another reason why I share openly, because I want people to see that it is real. And it's funny, my kids and I were just watching that movie, The Wild Robot, last night. And it's about a robot who finds this goose egg and nurtures the egg and hatches the egg and mothers the egg. And it's a robot. And she really literally reprograms herself to figure out how to mother a goose. And that's part of this, right? It's like we do have to reprogram ourselves to be more than we were meant to be, which is beautiful if you think about it.
Yeah.
And friends that have watched that movie have reached out to me and said, oh, like, everyone should watch that movie because it even helps society understand more about our role as a mother and what the role of a mother is, like, outside of genetics.
Right. You mentioned a number of things that helped you feel more informed and supported. Can you just share some of the ones specifically for you that helped you learn more about donor conception and the different paths available?
In the beginning, there wasn't a lot because this was, 11, 12 years ago when I first started this. So there were no support groups. There were no blogs and podcasts and all of that. I, at the time, leaned on my doctor quite a bit. Since then, now that the journey to my son, there were a lot more things available. And I think I was never even told about frozen donor eggs when I first approached this. It was just, here's what you do. You pick a donor, you find her, and you don't know her, and this is sign here. Whereas the second time around, I had a lot more education on the fact. And I also wasn't in a vulnerable place anymore. The first time I was like, I'll sign anywhere. Just get me pregnant, right? Whatever I have to do. Or the second time it's like, hold on, I need to know who she is. I need to know these things about her family history. And I also, again, wanted a certain timeline because I was older and it was my second baby. So I would say now there are a lot more resources out there. There are groups. There are, I would say, even a lot of kids' books. Read some of those, even if you don't have an embryo or an egg donor, anyone yet. Like, you're just in the process, because actually I have some of them here for my group the other night. Where's the one? Oh, this one.
Yes, I love that book.
Yeah.
I read that book to all my kids when they were a baby.
Right? But like, adults should read this. Like, I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of people out there that they don't even know how babies are made. I'm like, read the book.
Yeah.
But what I love about this is there's no mother, father. It's just, these are the parts. So
Right.
when you read books like this.
And for those who are listening and not watching, you're showing us the book, What Makes a Baby?
Yes, by Corey Silverberg. And it's gender neutral. There's no pronouns, there's no titles. It's truly just, here are the parts you need. And some bodies have these parts and some bodies don't, right? And once you start to put this in the mind of a child, when you're like, oh, this is so, like, actually easy to understand and to me explain to a child, it starts to feel less scary. So that's one of the, like, homework assignments I give people in my groups is, like, read the kids' books. You're going to start to realize this isn't as scary as it has to be. But now there's so many podcasts and Facebook groups. And I will say that it's a little dicey when you join some of the IVF and fertility groups when they're not on the same donor conception journey. A lot of the women who come in are like, yeah, I didn't quite fit in. So you do really need to find that donor conception community, because I don't know, those are your safe people. They truly get it. They're not going to say the wrong thing because they've already felt it and heard it. And I think that if you can start there they're strangers essentially, but they become like your closest, most safest people, you'll start to get a lot of resources even from them. They'll say, hey, I read this book or I heard this podcast the other day. But just getting your, like, village, I think, is like the most crucial part of all of this.
How did that process look like for you with Donor Nexus, connecting with the donor? Can you just share with us how that happened?
I reached out to them because they were local, and I was like, hey, I noticed that you have frozen and fresh. Is there any chance some of your frozen donors would be open to an open relationship? And their first answer was like, let us check. Who are you interested in? I was like, oh my God, you're flexible. Like, I've never heard that, because there's multiple banks that I called and they're like, sorry, you have to wait till the kid's 18, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, that's not what I want. And so I chose a donor, literally the first one I chose, Chloe. And I said, what about her? And they said, well, let's call her. We'll find out. I was like, oh my God, like, they're going to call her. So they called her. They said, yeah, she's open to it. I was like, really? And they said, yeah, once you're pregnant after the first trimester, she's willing to start communicating with you. And I was like, that early? Oh my God. And I literally had chills. I was like, okay, yes, 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 And so we did. We started corresponding, and we've never met. I've never heard her voice, but sometimes I'm like, I'd love to like hear her voice.
Yeah.
But I've seen pictures of her, and we email. That's our relationship. And there's been a couple medical things for my son. He had some ear issues and had to have a surgery. And there was one moment in time that I'll never forget that was like the biggest, like most grateful moment of this whole thing to have this relationship with her was I was literally sitting in the waiting room about to go into his surgery with him when he was 2. And it dawned on me, they asked me the question, has anyone in your family ever had issues with anesthesia? And I was like, oh my God, I don't know. I don't know. I knew my husband at the time. I knew his history, but I didn't know hers.
Right.
And so I emailed her from the waiting room, urgent question.
Right.
And normally her emails, it would take her 3 or 4 days to get back to me. And I was like, there's no way. She's literally within 30 seconds, she
Wow.
responded. She said, this is something me and my family have talked about. None of us had ever had any issues, nothing to be concerned about.
Oh,
And
good.
I literally went in the bathroom and cried like, yes, this is what it's about, right?
Right.
And so I was confident to say to them, no, there's no issue. And I could breathe easier knowing he's going in and under for the first time at 2 years old.
Yeah.
And so there's things like that pop up that like you don't think about until you're in that moment and you want to be able to reach out and ask. And I don't have that with my daughter. And luckily I haven't had instances like that are emergencies that I've had to ask about. But you also, now there's a lot of genetic testings and things that you can do if you don't have that relationship with your donor. I don't want anyone to feel shamed by that or like stuck because there are a lot of other ways to find medical history.
Mm-hmm. You brought up shame, and earlier you shared that one of the things that you were worried about is how other people would perceive you. And what I'd like to know is how did you move through those feelings and see this as moving forward rather than giving up? Because I think that would help a lot of our listeners who are in this position of considering egg donation.
I think initially it was like, what is my goal? My goal is to be a mom, right? It was, this could help me get there, right? I want to be pregnant. That was something I really wanted to try to do. And my eggs didn't work. And so I got this part that I needed. And at some point, it just became like a math equation. It was like, I need this part to do this. This is my goal. I know that sounds very simple and just like cliche, but
it's complicated, but yet you're breaking it down in a way that it's the reality of what it is.
Right. And back to your kidney example, it's like,
right.
I needed that part.
Right.
And that's how I talk to my kids about it. It's like, this part of me didn't work. So I got it from someone who helped, and then it worked. And now here you are. And I will say the shame lasted quite a while. I think honestly, like at some point, like with that pivot, like you dance with shame. And eventually, once your children are here, like I literally, I'll have these talks with people and they'll say, what if people don't see me as a real mom? And I said, what do you think about me? Do you see me as a real mom to your kids? Oh my God, of course. Yeah. Like you guys are like so close. And I'm like, okay, how are you any different than me? And so that's why I share, because I want people to see, yes, I'm the real mom, just like you will be. And it's funny because if you ask my daughter or my little guy, like, who is your real mom? They'd say, what do you mean? There's only one, right? Like, it's like, that's crazy to even ask me that. They know both of their donors. They know, like, I eventually did find the anonymous one for my daughter. We know her name. They're privy to that. They know who those people are, and those people helped make them. But I'm the real mom. Like, there's no shame.
Yeah. And when patients tell me, like, I'm just scared my child's going to say to me one day, you're not my real mom. And I'm like, every kid says that.
I said that to my mom.
Every kid says that. So that's normal.
Right.
So now you're a mom of 2. And when you look back at the difficult what now moments, what would you want someone going through that stage right now to hear?
I think I would say, just because this wasn't your first choice doesn't mean it's not the right one. I think a lot of us get hung up on like, well, this wasn't my plan. This wasn't my vision. This isn't what I wanted. This wasn't like the easy path. But just because it's hard, just because it wasn't your first choice, it doesn't mean it's not going to be the right one that leads you to the children meant for you. But
Yeah.
sometimes the hardest paths are the ones that bring the most value, and purpose and joy. I always tell people I'm glad my eggs didn't work, which I know some people want to slap me for saying that, but I have learned not just because these kids are my kids and I'm like, I wouldn't have them any other way. Had these babies grown in their donors' bodies with my ex-husband's sperm, it wouldn't be those two kids. They'd be different
Right.
candidates. So like this is the only way these two kids could have existed. And
Yeah.
thank God for that, right? Yes, of course, always. But I also think that I've learned a lot about myself and I've grown as a human and with this invisible illness, I have a new empathy for others that I wouldn't have had otherwise. And I've experienced grief deeply in ways now I can understand other people's grief, and help them and help my children. So like I've grown. I've grown as an individual, as a friend, as a sister, as a daughter, as a mom.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful for that.
I learned so much from my patients and through the years of experience I've had. One of the things that they've shared with me, and I bring this up often in the conversations I have with my patients because they're worried that they're going to regret doing donor egg. And I say, no. The one regret my patients have shared with me is that they wish they had done it sooner.
Yep.
So, if I were to ask you, is there anything that you regret about this journey that you've been on? What would you say?
That would be one, is I wish I'd done it sooner because that would mean more time with my children. And then two would just be that open relationship and not even necessarily, I'm not saying they come to the birthday parties, right? It's just
Right.
no, like having access to that person the way we do with Chloe through Donor Nexus. That would be it. But then again, I go back and like, but if I changed that, it wouldn't be my daughter. So I wouldn't. So I don't regret it. I need it to be her. But I do wish I had more time with them. I wish I'd done this. Again, I wasn't ready, but I wish I'd done this at 30. So I would, instead of 38 with my daughter, 42 with my son, like it would just meant more time with them. But
Right.
looking back, I also mentally wasn't there and that wouldn't have been best for them either. So
Right. Right.
I guess I have no regrets.
I love it. Good. So, for listeners who want to learn more about donor conception or hear more about your story, where can they find you and connect more with your work?
So I share our family story on Expecting Anything, Instagram, or expectinganything.com. And the support groups that I lead with, they're really classes. People always say, I'm going to class because I
Oh,
bring in speakers and we do a lot of education. And the partners come too. So there's a lot of men in the group that I love hearing from the men. They always give such beautiful perspectives as well. But that's in Infertility Unfiltered. So Infertility Unfiltered Instagram or infertilityunfiltered.com. And then also Donor Nexus. So, I want to give a shout out to them because again, I wouldn't be here with this beautiful story with my son without them, which I believe their Instagram is just Donor Nexus.
is there anything else, Victoria, that you want to add today?
I would just say I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm a stranger, but like my DMs are always open. If you're in a dark place, please reach out to me. I always respond. It might take me a little while, but I will always respond.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story with us. And I always learn so much from you. And I know our listeners will too. Thank you so much for coming back on the show and for sharing your story so openly. Conversations like this help so many people feel less alone in their fertility journey. For everyone listening, you can find links to everything we talked about today in the show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to the Egg Whisperer Show on YouTube and Spotify so you never miss an episode. And remember this, your fertility journey doesn't have to look like anyone else's. You're allowed to pause, learn, and move forward at your own pace. Keep believing in your path, keep asking questions, and above all, keep sparkling.